Welcome to the Level Up Life podcast. I'm your host, Scottie Hobbs, and welcome to this episode. Today, we're going to have a conversation with Tyler Brown. Tyler lost his mom as a teenager, found a church, and served a mission before meeting his wife. He found a love for fitness and decided to create his own brand called APED. He has 5 years experience in door-to-door sales, and he talks about the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur as he builds the APED brand. Tyler, welcome to the show. What's up, everyone? I'm here with my buddy, Tyler. Super excited to do this interview today. Most of you guys probably won't know this because the episode never got uploaded, but Tyler was the first interview I did for this podcast live in person when he lived here in Idaho Falls. Unfortunately, we had some mishaps with our equipment and only got half of it. And I considered putting that half up and redoing the other half. And I just thought it would be better just have a whole new conversation a few months down the road. So here we are. Tyler, I'm super excited to have this chat with you today. I want you to share with the people a little bit about who you are.
So I'm 27 years old, to be 28 here in a few months. My most recent and longest profession has been working for APED. I do door-to-door sales, selling pest control. This will be my 5th summer doing that. The way obviously we came in connection is through fitness. So I unfortunately didn't get into fitness until a little bit later in life. Actually just out of high school. And ended up going to Marine Corps boot camp in 2015. And so obviously starting to prepare for that, I had to, get in a little bit better shape than I was in. Graduated high school at probably just over 100 pounds. It was all a new thing to me. And through life, I just had different struggles, some addictions, if you will. And I, just found fitness being a really good way for me to release stress, to feel more confident in myself. And, again, to have a more healthy addiction that's actually going to help me to become better, to better myself, become better in life. And so I got into fitness, and long story short, moved from Tennessee to Georgia, and then Georgia to Idaho, and came into connection with you, and here we are.
That's awesome. So as I met you at the gym, you were just in the process of launching your business and your brand. So tell us a little bit about what you do with what your business is, what your brand is, and how the first year, how has that first year been?
Yeah, so our company is APED. We specialize in supplements. So as of right now, our main and only is pre-workout, which you've had. I think we both vouch for it. It's pretty good stuff. It's not perfect, but I don't think there's any perfect, pre-workout out there. Some people may disagree, but I'm not going to lie. The first year has been interesting. I took another brand for a long time, for about 5 years straight. Many people would know who they are if I mentioned them, but I don't want to give them too much credit. They're already big enough as it is. So I love their stuff. And one day, after, again, taking their stuff for 5 years, actually talking to the owners a little bit, to their main warehouse or manufacturing plant, and so on. One day I was just thinking to myself, I love their stuff, and I think I could make something just as good, and if not better, in my opinion. And so I just started to do research, and that day I actually found a manufacturer in Georgia, where I was, close to where I was from, and that actually ended up being the company I used to create the product. About a year, after that. So the first year has been obviously definitely a struggle. It's just like everyone says, you spend more money than you thought you would, and you put in more time than you thought you would. And so that's it. And you, in most cases, and in my case, the same, you get less return during that first little bit than you maybe hoped that you would.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's pretty much where we're at. We've gotten into some locations up in Idaho, some different gym locations. We've gotten into a grocery store chain up in Idaho, eastern Idaho, and now we're looking at, and we've been, talking back and forth with some bigger gyms that are more national chains. So
That's awesome. So, I've read over reading multiple books, listening to different podcasts, that it takes on average a business, a traditional business like the one you're starting with your brand of your pre-workout, 5 years on average to break a profit. So when someone's going out like you in your first year, your first couple years, it's to be expected. And I think that's an
Huh.
important thing to talk about, so that because the audience for this podcast are people that want to be high level athletes or business owners. And so our role here is to help them understand what it takes, the type of mindset, the type of tenacity, the type of consistency, work ethic to make that happen. So talk to me a little bit about, because I've worked with supplements for the past 13 years or so now as well. And I'll get someone sometimes that'll, I'll be mentioning a supplement that I'm using. They're like, oh, I'm just going to go over to Walmart and they have that at like, I can go get that something like that for $30. Talk to us about the different types of supplement, not necessarily different brands, but I can't remember the words. Like there's a white label and a private label. Is that what it was
Okay.
called? What is
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
Or
yeah. So yeah, yeah. So I first actually learned about this. I guess it was yeah, actually I remember what it was. It was really that first or second conversation with the manufacturer I ended up using. They gave me those two options and they said, this is the easier, faster, cheaper option, which again was the white label option, which is where I could take a supplement that's already been FDA approved, blah, blah, blah. I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is give them the name of the company, my logo, and basically create the label, the sticker that I want it to look like on all the bottles, the packaging, whatever. And they would do that for me, package it. They would slap the labels on there, and then we'd be able to start selling it right away. And then the other option obviously was private label, which is the one I went with because I don't, in anything that I do, I've never like taken the easy route. And sometimes that's a double-edged sword, or whatever. I just don't like taking the easy route doing stuff because I feel like, when something's usually really easy, it's not, usually worth it and you don't see a lot of reward. And so for this, I wanted to um, start a private label brand. So a brand where I come up with the name, the logo, every single ingredient inside of it, every piece about it. And so that's what I did. I took the brand that I loved a lot, and obviously I emulated, some of their ingredients. I took some things out of it as well, and then I added a few things to it after doing some research on some ingredients we thought would be a really good fit. And so, yeah, everything I didn't go on my computer, and again, I'm not talking down to people who do this, but I didn't go on my computer and try to create my own label and try to create my own logo and all this stuff. It's like you got to pick and choose. There's certain things you can do on your own, and that's great. I did a lot of footwork and enough stuff on my own. I didn't want to ruin my whole idea and everything by trying to go on and create, what everything's going to look like. That would have done a terrible job. It looked like SpongeBob drew it or something like that, right? And so I hired the right people for the logo. I hired the right people for, the whole lettering of everything. I spent the money I feel like where it needed to be spent, and I didn't spend money where I felt like I could do just as good of a job.
yeah,
So,
just from the outside looking in, as I see because your products on the shelves of the gym where I go, and when I see it there, it just pops. It looks so good. So huge props on that. So what other things did you do? Did you take on
thanks.
as the CEO of your business, running, starting this company? What kind of things did you have to do? So for example, you outsourced creating the logo and some of those things. What are some of the things you had to do that maybe an entrepreneur starting out wouldn't think of? Like as like a
That's a
traditional
good
employee,
question.
what sort of things do you do to get yourself out there?
Yeah, I mean, um, I think the good thing for me in one way I had a leg up. We're not a huge company yet. We haven't, we've achieved a lot, but we haven't achieved near as much as we want to, or as some people would even consider like, great success so far as a business. But one thing that gave us a leg up and helped us get to this point and helped us get to a really good point where people do see us on the shelves of the places they go, and in a pretty quick amount of actually release the product is again due to the sales experience. I'm just realizing that at the end of the day, if you want something, all you have to do is go out and open your mouth and talk to people. And
Yeah.
so, from knocking on people's doors all day to sell a product that, quite frankly, isn't mine, and I'm really, I'm selling it because I believe in the product, and I'm selling it to make money. Taking something that I created and that's my own, and that I, quite frankly, created not to make money, but to, again, serve a purpose and to fill a gap and to bring value to people. It was pretty easy to go to different locations of gyms, grocery stores, and whatever, and reach out to people. So that's probably the one thing I'd say is don't expect people to see your product the way that you do. You see your product as a big piece of gold, up in the sky, like everybody can see it, everyone should want it, right? And that's not the case. When you go around, people may see your product and be like, okay, so what, right? And so you have to have the mindset of, if I want people to appreciate my product, if I want people to see the value in it, I have to go share that with, tell them, why it's valuable, why they should want to sell it to their customers that come into their facilities. So
Yeah. I love that. Having that, I think a lot of times someone will start some sort of business, whether it's recruiting for a sales job like summer sales like you're doing, or doing a network marketing company, or creating a brand like you did with your APED, that you can just create this perfect reel or this perfect post on social media, put it out there, and the world will just come flocking and the orders will just come in. I think people kind of feel like that's
yeah,
that's what will happen, or you just need to create the right marketing strategy, the perfect, post, and it will just get shared by a lot of people, and people will click the link and buy it. But in all reality, it takes showing up, networking, making those connections.
yeah,
This is just me assuming, but I'm assuming the grocery stores that are here in Idaho Falls or Southeast Idaho that carry your product, they didn't reach out to you on Instagram and say, "Hey, I saw your product. We want it on our shelves." You probably went and talked to the grocery store, right?
yeah, yeah. We haven't had a single location of anyone. I mean, you would think that with a chain of gyms or grocery stores, you have your product in some of the locations. They say, hey, let's put it in the other locations since they literally own them. That's not
Yeah.
the case. I literally had to beat down on one of the gym's doors for the gym that you actually go to get into the location. Well, and into another location. I'll just say that
Yeah.
since other people see this, I don't want anybody to feel like it's hard feelings or anything. But yeah, we had to bang on the door of another location for, I mean, I think it was 6 to 8 months, and we just got in there like a month ago. And even though we were already in the other two locations for way long before that, so it's just funny how that works. So yeah, don't expect people to reach out to you, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So I'm just thinking right now about you. You've had a few years of experience selling door to door. So you've gained confidence and skills in knocking on the door, making a connection, making a sell, inviting someone to a product and making a sell. You also were a missionary for your church, right? And had some experience
Yep.
with that. So tell me about that. I saw a post recently that was shared, I think, by the church about your story. What's your story with like your life change in coming into a church? Could you share some of that with us?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I grew up in I bounced around a bit. I guess that should start out by saying, I haven't seen my real dad since I was about 5 or 6 years old. And then I had a couple of stepdads along the way as well. Um, and throughout um, the whole experience with, growing up in different households, they've all been overall pretty good. There's a lot of people have had way worse living situation for sure. And we always had households where everyone, had a belief in God, which, I think is important. Having a little bit of that stability there to, maybe not be the best person, but not go off the deep end too much. And, I think that was a good blessing. Never had a living situation where we went to church or read scriptures or said prayers together, anything to that effect. And growing up, I didn't really feel like I was missing anything because, again, when you're used to not having that your whole life, you're just like, oh, it's just pretty normal, situation. And yeah, when I was 18, the missionaries knocked on my door and started teaching me. And I had been to two churches in life. I actually got baptized whenever I was like 8 years old or 9 years old in a Baptist church in the town that I'm actually now living back in again in Tennessee. I had some friends of mine that went there, so I was like, "Oh, this is fun." Um, and then when I was in high school, I went to a church for about a year or so because I had a girlfriend that was going to church there, and so I just basically was following people around, wherever they would go.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, when the missionaries, for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints knocked on my door, everything they said made sense and felt right. And I had some changes to make, so it wasn't like it was an easy switch to say, "Oh yeah, this sounds awesome. Let's get baptized." It wasn't anything like that. It was, I had to stop the addictions I was doing. I had to really change a lot about myself. Um, but the good thing is, I didn't change myself on my own. God definitely helped me do that, and that was another big testament to me of really believing in not necessarily just the church itself, but the principles or the doctrine that we believe in and teach as members of the church. Because as I was trying to follow everything that I was being taught by the missionaries, it wasn't easy, but I could just feel with every little piece, I was receiving help in order to change and become the person that I needed to be in order to be baptized and become a member of the church. And so I was like, I knew that was the place to be. So
That's awesome. And did you go out and serve a mission as well after you got baptized? What's your
yeah,
story?
yeah, it took me about, I guess it was, I got baptized in 2014, close to the end. And I ended up going on my mission in 2019. So it took me 5 years. I had some struggles along the way, and obviously, going from one kind of lifestyle to almost the exact opposite. At first, um, because I had so many people around me because it was such a new thing. It didn't seem like it was too bad, but then not too many months down the road, I started kind of reverting back to some of my old ways and old habits because I just didn't have a ton of support, frankly, with that. No one in my family. I didn't have any friends that were members of the church. I just had, a lot of the, older people that I attended that church with that were friends, and obviously with missionaries. For those that don't know, I mean, when you're out there for 2 years, women go for 18 months, but you move around different areas. So the two missionaries that, baptized me and taught me, it's like, yeah, we were friends there for a bit, and we still are. I've seen them. Actually came to my wedding last year, but they bounce around and they move. So I was kind of left with, feeling like I didn't have a ton of support. So, anyways, I struggled along the way for a few years, and then one day I just kind of got back in a really bad place, and I said, you know what, I got to make the change. Like I looked back into the time when I was the happiest, whenever I'd gotten rid of all those bad habits, whenever I was living like the happiest life that I ever had been, and I said, I need to get back to that point. And so I just stopped relying on myself and what I thought would work, because obviously it wasn't working. I was in a pretty bad spot. Um, I started doing all the things that I originally was taught. From studying the scriptures every day. Always staying in prayer, and changing my influences, my music, things I watch. Social media, the conversations I had. Just the way I spent my time, and yeah, as I started doing that, my world, kind of changed, and I felt closer to God than I ever had. And yeah, that's when I really felt inspired to serve a mission. And yeah, I went out when I was 23 and got back this 2 years ago when I was 25. So
That's awesome. I didn't realize it was so recently that you got back. That's awesome. So I feel like I met you probably a year ago. So you were
yep,
probably about a year off of your mission and recently married. So that's
yep,
awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
yep,
I was just thinking about some of the things you were saying there as, you have this idea or you're introduced and you become a member of the church, you get baptized, start changing things about your life, and then slowly kind of started drifting off again when you didn't have close influences. I think there's a correlation in that with anything in life. Like let's say you're building your business and you're around people who are hardworking, driven people. And sometimes if you distance yourself from those types of people, you can start to lower standards a little bit. I've seen that in my own
oh yeah,
life. Have you seen that or experienced that in your life? Or what do you feel is
oh yeah, for
how
sure.
important do you feel it is to be around those type of people?
Yeah, I think it's super important. I yeah, I've definitely had those times. I mean, going to boot camp wasn't one of my first interesting experiences. I wasn't actually active in the church at the time, but I still knew it was true, and I still knew all the principles that I should be living, or right. I just kind of fallen away, and I remember going to boot camp, and it was a pretty, big shell shock in some ways because I'd always had a belief in God, and I don't, you know, I'm not against people that don't. I don't, disrespect them. If they have that belief to not believe, and that's completely up to them. But going to boot camp, I was first got there, and there was 90 something guys, and I kid you not, I think I was in the platoon. At least it felt like to me, with like the most atheists like ever. We probably have like 10 to 15, and some of them were pretty vocal about it. And they would see me, always praying at meals, and they would see me reading scriptures at night and doing all these things. And some of them were um, pretty bothered by it, and I don't know, for whatever reason, it really affected them. And they would always kind of let me know that. And that was one of those experiences. And I think, going to your point, um, you can, when you're in those experiences with those kind of people, you can either kind of let them affect you, or you can affect them. And I feel like in that situation, I chose to have an effect on them. I didn't sway my beliefs. I didn't get obviously upset with them. I just I kept my composure, and I obviously was confident what I was doing and what I believed. So I continued to pray. I continued to read my scriptures, and when they asked questions, I answered them. And when they had things to say that weren't too kind, I just kind of brushed it off and kept moving on my way. And I remember having some good experiences with guys, um, that actually started going to church. I remember there was a couple of them, and one in particular, it was getting close to graduation of boot camp, and he was coming to church with me because the drill instructors pretty much made everyone come to church. They were like, "We don't care if you're atheist or whatever you believe, you're going to go to church." And so obviously everyone goes to church. And I had a couple that I was just like, you guys got to go to some church. You might as well just come with me. And they started coming and coming and coming. And one of the last times before graduation, one of them went up, and he had a time to go up to the mic and share his testimony, and he chose to go up there. And he said, I didn't believe in God before I came here, and through everything, I needed someone to lean on, and now I believe he's there and he's real. And I want to thank Tyler for inviting me, and everything he shared and stuff. And it was just a cool experience. And so in situations like that, I just think that's the best thing you can do is don't allow others to affect you. You're the one that's supposed to have the effect on other people. So.
Yeah. That's Thanks for sharing that testimony. I was thinking as you were sharing that experience, it reminded me of my in-laws, and both my parents and my in-laws. They've seen what I've done over the past 12 years building a business, and using social media as the main platform to reach people in my marketing and finding clients and partners to work with. And I remember just a couple of times throughout my life, even like I think I kind of ignored it for a long time, of just saying like, you should use your platform to share what you believe in. Like, I think your work's more important than just helping someone get into some workout DVDs and supplements. And it wasn't even until recently that like I made that decision. Like, for example, and that's why I asked you this specific question about your experience on that path, because I want to talk about that stuff more. And I recently made a shift on my personal Instagram and my social media platforms. It's, before it was like I mentor, we're a top team in X company, we're this amount of sales, like all of just like worldly accolades. And now my thing says, uh, I'm here to remind you that your family is your most important work on earth, and help you become the best human possible. And so I'm grateful that you shared that. Just like your example, makes an influence. And anybody listening to this episode with Tyler today, like, I hope you gain some insights about what it takes to build a business, but really take note of that story that he shared about at boot camp of, you don't have to try to prove everybody wrong in life. Like, if they have a belief different than you just know what you believe in, know who you are, and share confidently about that, and just love people unconditionally. Some people are like, one of my friends once, I was like, he was asking, and I know I'm supposed to be asking you questions, but it just brings this to my
No
mind.
worries.
He was like, there was one time when I was making like $6,000 a month on Facebook Reels by creating Reels. And he asked me how that was going, if I was still like cranking that out. And I was like, man, I'm not, because, and I started listing some of the things that were like comments that were being made from just haters, like people I don't even know. He's like, oh, you made the biggest mistake in the social media world when you're trying to share a message and influencing. He's like, you read the comments. And I was like, so it's kind of cool. Like I grew my Instagram over the past, since November, since I changed my messaging from 13,000 to, I think we're 52,000 today followers. And I don't read a single
Wow.
comment on there. Like, I mean, I'll read them and I'll like them, but I'll see people fighting or arguing with each other. And I just like, just, it doesn't even process. I'm like, oh, not reading those. And I just go on and
Oh,
just
God.
share what I believe
I'm
in.
glad you don't. That makes me nervous. I don't want you to read any of my comments. No, I was kidding.
No, but I love that example that you shared right there. So I'm going to ask you, if someone's watching this and they want to start a business of some sort, what's a piece of advice that you would give them? Someone that's just starting out.
There's two pieces of advice I'd give. The first advice, I hope I didn't lose it. The first advice that I would give is make sure you're doing something because you see a benefit or a value in it, and don't start it solely for the purpose of making money. I say that because obviously, somewhere down the line you want to turn a profit, you want to reap the rewards of a business, and it's the same with my business. But don't have that be the sole reason why you start that business. And I say that because obviously starting a business is to make money. Um, with the amount of hours, the amount of effort, the amount of sacrifice you have to put in, if you're starting it just to make money, in most cases, you're not going to succeed with it. You're going to give up at some point, because that's going to fade. You're going to realize at the end of the day, I could go work at McDonald's and be making more money than I'm making now whenever I'm just starting a business. That's just the fact, right? And
Yeah.
you probably would agree with me on that. For some time, you're not going to make much money. So if that's your sole purpose, then it's probably not the right business model. You should really have like a passion for it, and you should be able to tell yourself, I don't care if it takes me 5 years, like you said, to turn a profit. I'm going to do it no matter what. I'm going to keep going. So you need to be sold on whatever it is you're doing. And the second one I would say is make sure that the sacrifices that you're putting in um, are going to hurt. They're going to actually have some weight to them, and there's something that's going to keep you motivated during the hard times. Because for me, that's something I'm always grateful for. Because I mean, it's been whatever 2 years or however long it's been. I don't really keep track of it anymore since I first started this business. Um, but it's been a while, and I put in a lot of time, a lot of hours, and especially I put in a lot of money. For me, obviously the time and the hours, it definitely adds to it. But I think even more than that, at least for me personally in this specific business, is the amount of capital that I put into the business. It was, at least for me, a substantial amount of money during that time. When I first started it, it was um, like a quarter of my earnings. And mind you, I'd also just got married that year as well. So I had more
Yeah.
expenses on top of that. And so yeah, just make sure whatever you're doing, that you really make sure you have a pretty big sacrifice at the beginning, because later down the road when their times are tough, that's going to come to your mind and you say, no, we're going to keep going. Like I've already spent all this time, all this money, effort, whatever it is, already made these sacrifices. And that just keeps you pushing along so you never give up. So
I love that. One thing about you, Tyler, that I'm seeing, like before we started recording, you were mentioned that you were going to go out and do some door-to-door sales this year. I think one of the biggest misconceptions that I've been running into lately is someone thinks from the outside, they think I have to be all in on this one thing or I won't be successful. And I think it's Jim Rohn that says, like, I hated when someone would start a business and go full time with it, because they lose the power of what he would call, like, I work. Let's say for you, example, um, in his words would be like, I sell pest control for my career and I'm building my wealth with this brand Aped Fitness that I'm building. And when I first built my business, I was working 12-hour days in a steel factory and building my business on the side. I have an incredible partner. She's one of our top leaders. She just like stays well connected within the community. She's building her business, and she worked full time as a partner with us for like 8 years, like left her job, just home with the kids. And the kids are getting older and they're at school, and she's well connected in her community because of the work she's done. and someone offered her like an incredible salary with benefits to sell mattresses at a big store in her town. And she's like, I just couldn't pass it up. Like it was a six-figure salary doing sales, with some friends in a company. And what I love about her is like she went and did, like she took that job, but she's still building her her business with us as a partner and building wealth, extra income to provide more family vacations, pay off the house faster, put kids in college.
Yeah.
And I think too often someone says like, see someone like you, for example, or me, and says like, okay, he's doing ape. That's his thing, like, or that's the thing I gotta only focus on. And I see when people get into that space, they, if it takes five, because we've been talking about it could take 5 years to break a profit, could take three, could happen in your first year. You never know. You could give up at year three when that profit's going to break at five because you're not making money. You got to have some other way sometimes. It's okay to work a job
Yeah.
and build a business, or work two jobs and build a business. Just staying focused on that end goal and doing what you need to do. I'm going to ask
Mhm.
you a kind of a deep question. You can take it as deep as you want. Like, if you're looking at yourself from the outside in, what do you attribute or contribute your success to? Like, what made Tyler the way
Well,
he
I
is?
mean, yeah, I mean, quite frankly, I say this, humbly and the most confidently that I can. I don't really feel like I've achieved a ton of success. I mean, everyone's different. Everyone's, I guess, um, idea of success is a little bit different, but, I try to recognize that, more, and I'm glad that, you recognize that for me. So, um, yeah, for at least where I'm at now, again, like I said, I have a long, long ways to go to be where I want to be and where I will be. Um, but yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I mean, the main thing is God. I mean, if it wasn't for, God and for me going to him to change who I was, to change my habits, to change my perspective on the world and on people and everything else, I honestly would just be a bum. Like I really would. I'd just be some person that's just wasting their days, doing a bunch of things that are bringing temporary pleasure that aren't gonna, bring any lasting, meaningful effect. And so, yeah, for sure, God, 100%. I mean, that's what's, it got me to that first breaking point, and then, it got me through another big one where I fell away for a while. And, every day I've recognized that, again, it's not just a one time thing. And I hope more and more people start to recognize that it's not, just saying that I believe. It's not just, having that one time, moment of faith or whatever. It's like it's a never ending cycle. It's difficult and it's not supposed to be easy. It's every single day, relying on him, admitting your faults, changing to try to do better, and trusting in him for guidance along the way, to help you to find success. If you want to find success, don't turn to your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your guru, or whoever you're looking at online. Turn to God. He's the one that's going to help you find success more than anyone else will. And
Yeah.
that's one thing I respect a lot about you is obviously, I mean, I still talk about you to people all the time. And like, I really respect about you is because, yeah, you're successful, which is awesome. You're way more successful than most people. But I've also met a lot of successful people along the way in these past few years of life too. But for you, it's like the humility that you have and the way you carry yourself, which for me is more important than anything else. So I would just say, yeah, the closer you're to God you get, the more successful that you're going to be. And with that success, just always try to remember him along the way, because, he'll keep you humble. He'll keep you focused on what's the most important in life. And so, yeah, for me at this point, I mean, that's really all I can point to. I mean, definitely friends, family. I have a wife now, and that's, obviously helped a ton. Having someone to keep me focused again on the right things, keep me close to God. And then, yeah, like I said, just having friends that are, successful people and that, are making a lot of good choices. I just try to make sure that I, you're always going to have, everyone has faults like we all do. Just be sure that the friends and family that you have, you take the good things that you learn from them and you apply to your life, and then you learn some of the things maybe not to do. And
Yeah.
so,
Well, I see you as successful, brother, because I see you overcome obstacles and challenges in your life, working hard, like
yeah,
getting out there to provide for your family, both, doing door-to-door sales, which I know is super hard, and then continuing to do something that brings you passion and love with your Ape brand. And I know you have big goals for that. We'll get to some more of that in a little bit. But just from one brother to another, like have conversations with my wife from time to time when I meet people, and I'm like, I hope my daughter meets someone like Tyler. And there's a few people that I've met locally that are like that. So that's success to me, brother. So for a dad to say
thank
that
you.
about somebody. So
Yeah,
um
that means a lot.
yeah, you're welcome, man. And how grateful are we? Man, I've been putting it in like every other post I do on my social media. It's like the same sentence. Like I have a reel that has some message on it, but then I always write a caption. It's like choosing your spouse will be the most important decision, one of the most important decisions you'll ever make in your life. So I love that you shared having having a great wife that keeps you in line and working on
Yeah.
growing and being on the right path. So I'm going to ask you another question along those lines. Like, what hardship in your life, um, like what is a hardship that you've had in your life, and what did it teach you, or what did you learn from it?
Hmm. I mean, I've, you know, had quite a few, I think, as we all have. And, I would say, I mean, definitely the biggest one for me in life was, losing my mom. That was a real hard thing for me. I mean, my mom had me when she was 17 and raised me on her own. And, um, you know, losing her was definitely pretty tough. That was one of the moments where I really just kind of spiraled down. I wasn't doing too good after that. I think it just kind of, I don't know, it just, you see it a lot of times, when people have tough things happen, they either become stronger out of it, or, it actually knocks them down. But I think the key is that when that happens, like in my case, it did knock me down for a bit, but I think because of that, actually in the long run made me a lot stronger, and it taught me a lot of lessons. So I think at the end of the day, when something in a hardship happens, some people may see you as, the crazy person or the bum or the person that doesn't handle things very well or blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, God has a plan. And if you just never give up and you keep trying, at some point, when you do come back up, you're going to come back way, way stronger because of that hardship. And so for me, it took some time for sure. But I learned a lot of things. I mean, I think one of the things I learned is that, we, as much as I like to be in control, I'm one of those type of people where I like to control everything that's going on in my situation. Yeah, I don't like flying on planes, for instance, and I've had some rough flights because I just feel like I'm out of control of this thing. I'm not the one, that's determining where it goes and, when it lands and how fast we're going and everything else, right? And so I'm not a big fan of those. And the same thing with driving. Like I'm not a big fan of riding with other people. I like driving on my own because I'm in control of the vehicle. And same goes for a lot of my things in life. And little by little, I've just had to try to, let go. And that was one of those moments where I was just, as I look back on, I'm like, um, I had to really, I guess be humbled and in a way just, kind of let go and have faith that at the end of the day, everything's going to be okay and life still goes on. It's a big part of my life that obviously is gone. I believe and know that I'll see her again, but for the time being, that's out of my control. And so that was probably a big lesson there. And then just learning that, um, when a hardship happens, again, at the end of the day, um, take your time to grieve, take your time to process. But at the end of the day, like what's done is done. You can't change it, and you just need to, don't rush yourself, but keep in mind that at some point you need to get back up on the horse and you need to just keep pushing, and you need to take the things that you learn from that hardship, that situation, and use it the rest of your life. And so for me, one of the things that I've learned that I feel like I've continued to use is, obviously I share it with people, when people ask me about things, I try to comfort people that are in those kind of situations that have lost someone, because I went through all the same kind of feelings. And another thing is that I try to be better about appreciating my time and my relationships with other people, because you never know, when things change. when they could be there anymore, vice versa. So those are a couple of the big lessons from that.
Yeah, life is fragile. How old were you when you lost your mom?
I was 19, I turned 20 the next month. So,
Okay. And she had you when she was 17, is that what you said?
yep.
Okay. Well, yeah, thanks for I was talking with my daughter about some of these things. Well, along these lines about like one day we're here on Earth and then one day we might not be. She recently had my 15-year-old daughter, she had one of her friends pass away in a car accident a few months ago. And so we were just
Wow.
driving and it was this morning on the way to school and I was like, isn't it so crazy? Like we were just driving, the sun was coming up and I'm just like, we're like on this earth here. You're my daughter, I'm your dad. Like this, do you ever just like think about that? I think too often we just are like going through the motions of trying to survive or pay the bills or get through school or deal with whatever you're dealing with it at school with bullies or friends that are being mean. And I'm like, you ever just like sit back and be like,
Yeah.
how crazy is it that we're on this spinning planet that God created?
No,
And
yeah.
she's like, I know this is random, but she was just like, um, she was like, can you imagine if like people could actually time travel? She's like, picture like our ancestors that might have been like pulling a wagon across the US, through the middle of winter. Imagine if they like just time traveled and like ended up in the back seat of this truck. They would just be like mind blown. And I don't know, it's just we just always talk about life and like how crazy life is and that we're here. So it's fragile. I think that's a great reminder. You sharing that story to spend time, make sure that's your top priority. Like I want the Aped brand to be the biggest pre-workout brand, and as you expand into other things, I want it to be the biggest one you see on the shelf. Um, but even more importantly than that, I want as you do that, that you make your wife and your future kids that top priority, and they know Tyler was always here. And that's for anybody watching this as you build your business. 'Cause I
Yeah, for
believe
sure.
you can have all the success in the world, but if your family's not intact when you get there because you made that the sacrifice, then it's not really success, right? And you kind of hit on that, like success is different for
Yep.
everybody. So where do you, Tyler, where do you see yourself, kind of to start wrapping this up, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? What do you want to accomplish? How do you want your life to look?
Um, yeah, I don't know. I guess we probably have, similarities. Like for me, I know you're in real estate and I have a lot of buddies that I've met through the years. And, that's something that's always intrigued me as a good way to invest. We're buying our first house right now. I think, just owning some real estate, hopefully by that point in 5 years, I don't know, I'd like to do some big stuff, 10, 15, 20, different single family properties, I think would be pretty sweet. They won't be, I don't think they'll be quite as big as yours and everything. I don't know if I'll be buying them in cash, but I'd like to have some of those. That'd be awesome to, just a way to support, our life, pay our bills every month, without having to, know that I have to go out and work for those. I think would be awesome. And then, yeah, for eight, obviously in 5 years, I think it's a good time frame for us to build really, perfect our brand, our products, and, be able to really hit it hard on marketing and get into a lot more locations, build a lot bigger audience, just, and guy, and be able to, um, hopefully come out with, a variety of more, product supplements specifically, and, yeah, be more recognized on a national level versus just little Idaho. So I think, yeah. And then as far as, family and God goes, me and my wife have callings that I want to, kind of have some stability for a bit and stay in the same place and be able to really create some more relationships and friendships with people, and, keep looking for opportunities to serve in church, and then just to serve, on a daily basis when I'm out and about. That's something I want to be better with. And then, just strengthen family relationships. I'm not close with many of my family members. And I think being now that I've moved back east again, starting to strengthen some of those relationships. Um, and yeah, I
I
think
think
that kind of
that's
hits it all on the head. And again, obviously more than anything, just being close to God and having a stronger relationship than ever. I love to be able to say that. I think sometimes now I'm sure we all do this with certain things, and I look back at times like my mission or even other times in life, where I'm like, I wish I still had that kind of relationship with God, and so I want to, keep getting to that point where I'm like, right now I feel like I have a closer relationship than ever. That's what I'd like to be able to say at that time. So.
awesome. That's sweet. And we're talking about 5 years, that's a short term goal. We'll call that. But I want to remind you or anyone out here listening, like you're 28. Is that where you're at right now? 28 years of wisdom.
Yeah, I'm 27. I'll be 28 here in a few. Yep.
Okay. So, dude, just to remind you, like the typical retirement age of somebody is like 40 years from where you're at right now. So you have so much time to accomplish all the goals and dreams out there. And anybody who listen to this, I mean, you could be 42 like me, and I still have like 25 years of working life left in me. So there's still time. It's never too late to go out there and find what you love and go after it. Last question I want to ask you before we close this out. What are you most proud of?
Um, I think really just like you mentioned, for me, it's always been about spirituality. I remember actually thinking about this about a year or two ago, of, preparing for another summer of sales. And I've done well. I've always sold above average, every year that I've been doing this, and that's been awesome. But I was basically just trying to pick out like what my priorities actually are, and I was listing them all down. And I remember looking back at the paper, and I'm like, I don't know if this is good or not good, because my career or my job with sales was like so far down the list. I'm like, well, no wonder I'm not like great at it. It's like pretty far down on my list of priorities. And as I looked above everything above that, it's like none of these things can change. These are part of who I am too much. They're all cemented in there. So if sales is if my job is that far down low, then that just is what it is. And so for me, obviously the top of the list was God. My relationship with him, the promises I've made with him on the person that I choose and I want to be. Um, and that's an eternal thing. And it's, obviously a thing for the rest of my life that I um, have basically told myself and told God, like, I'm going to live this way, and I'm going to keep trying to improve my relationship with God in the way that I choose to live for the rest of my life. And so that's always going to be, um, you know, number one. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I love that you share those priorities with us, because I think a lot of times someone will be looking at an entrepreneur or someone building a business and think like that's obviously you have to be obsessed about something or super passionate and in love with it to make the sell was one of the tips that you gave. You got to love what you're doing. Um, but I believe that if you align yourself with your values, what you believe in, like I know that we wouldn't have this business or this life we have, for example, without God bringing the right people in, helping me change different aspects of my life that I needed to change. And, something about, that you've shared. And then I think it goes along with being a business owner, entrepreneurs. Sometimes you're going to work really hard and sometimes you're going to fall short and not work as hard as you know that you're capable of. And the same thing will go in our own spiritual journey. Sometimes we're going to be like on point with all of the good habits, and sometimes we're going to slip and make mistakes. And I don't believe God wants perfection out of us. And we don't need to be perfect as business owners, but we need to always be striving to become better, being self-aware. Like when we slip, when we make mistakes, in business and in life and in relationships, to always strive to be better and make those changes. So, dude, I've absolutely loved our conversation together. To be honest, I can't even remember if we even talked about similar things that we did last time when it didn't when we didn't capture it all. But I loved this conversation today, and I hope that people out there get some incredible value from it as well. So, thanks for being on here today, Tyler.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible episode with Tyler Brown, and we hope that you enjoyed the content that we shared with you today and invite you to send this to some friends. We'll see you next time, and don't forget that your leveled up life is just a few decisions away.